Welcome to the In-Between-Man podcast, where men can be men. It's true. I'm not kidding. And in this episode, we're going over headline number 5 from the State of American Men 2025 research study. Now, just recently, I was listening to Bill Burr. Do you guys know who Bill Burr is? He said something to me that was super profound. Not to me, but he said something on this podcast, or on the podcast that he was on, that was like super profound. And what it was he was saying, like, smart people, like the people who did this study, and shared this study with you, if I recite and share with you the findings of that study, I know that that doesn't make me smarter. I mean, yes, I'm getting intelligence on the dynamics that are happening within a certain population of people that were surveyed and responded to the questions of this survey. But this gives me insight and should give you insight into the reality of what men are living with today. All right. And I am hoping that sharing all this information with you is going to help you ask yourself the question, can I identify with one or all of these headlines? Like, does that make sense to me? Is what they're talking about aligned with my perspective and my viewpoints? Because I can sit back and say, yes, I felt that way. Yes, I can identify with that. Yes, I know that that's a problem. And yes, I need to do something to address it. One of the biggest concerns that I have about this entire topic and breakdown of helping men identify with scenarios that are actually happening today is that we've been so stuck in this mindset that we're not going to talk about our feelings, okay, because that means we're a pussy, and we're not going to ask for help because that means I'm a pussy, and I can usually figure out this stuff on my own. And the reality is we are living in a world today where men don't have the proper tools to help them through emotional trauma that they've had last week, or when they were 5 years old, or when they were 10 years old. The methodology that we have learned over the course of growing up is simple. Stuff it and don't talk about it. And that terrifies me. And it brings me back to this one quote that I have in the description of this podcast overview. And I'm going to read it to you. Without deliberate intervention to redefine masculine success beyond economic provisions, means if we aren't able to define what is masculine outside of just providing for a family and the financial needs that they have to have in order to coexist, right, and live a semi-normal life, we're going to be in a fuckload of trouble. The other dynamic is to challenge the man box emotional restrictions, which is what I just said in the beginning of this, which is I believe that my primary purpose is to only provide financial support, and I will not talk about my feelings. That's what the man box is. That's what this is saying. So if we can't find success outside of providing, and men aren't open to talk about what their feelings are in a proper, healthy way, this is going to happen. We risk losing an entire generation of men to depression, anxiety, and despair. And like I said in last week's episode, I had to look up how many people are in a generation. Now, that number includes men and women and children. But the number that I came back with was anywhere between 50 to 70 million. So let's just assume that it's 50 million and half of those people are men. All right. So half of 50 million is 25 million men that we risk losing to depression, anxiety, and despair. Are you okay with that? Like, are you okay with, hopping back on freaking Netflix and watching another episode of Mobland and just trying to forget about it? Because I'm not. I'm not okay with that. I am trying to use this information that I'm gathering through this study and through other means to help individuals identify with things that are uncomfortable and, more importantly, they don't want to talk about. I am going to provide in the coming weeks a process that I believe will be able to help men for a fee uncover emotional challenges that they may or may not be willing to face. It takes time, it takes patience, and I'm trying to figure out all those details now. But I just hope to God someone out there gets it. I hope to God someone can say, I can identify with what he's talking about. And you know what would be a great way to help me understand? Is to comment. I don't have any foundation of understanding whether or not you like this material or not, or whether you agree with it or you disagree with it. I got nothing. I got people in different countries on different continents freaking watching this stuff, and I have no feedback. I'm dying for fucking feedback. Because if this isn't what you want, then I got to figure out I'm doing something else. But because these results are so compelling and they helped me identify where my part is in all of this madness and anxiety and depression, it helped me create a jumping off spot to determine for myself how much I wanted to get better. How much? And if you only want to get better 1%, I'm okay with that. What are you doing? This is a PG show over here. Can you just lie down? Butchie's pumping the fucking pillow. Anyway, I felt compelled to say that. I'm going to say more of it going forward. Furthermore, if you're new to this podcast and this is the first episode that you're listening to, I implore you to please click on the playlist that says The In-Between-Man Introduction. I think it's TI-BM. And that will give you a breakdown of the who, what, where, and why of the mission of this podcast, which is trying to help men answer the question why men are struggling today. That's the mission. That's the point. And if I can give you little nuggets here and little nuggets there that you can identify with, that will help you determine whether or not you are open to the idea of uncovering more, great. If it doesn't do anything for you and you're still getting something out of the content, then that's fine too. You don't have to actually do anything. But I don't know why you wouldn't. Not a lot of people are like me. I don't, and I'm far from unique, but I know that when there's something wrong with me, I need to cut it out of my body like it's cancer, right? And I feel it in my gut when I know something's wrong. And for such a long period of time, I would just stuff it. And what happens when you stuff it is it just gets more toxic and more brutal, and it becomes harder to swallow because you're overfilled with shit. You're overfilled with this toxicity that you just want to throw up, and ultimately the decision is yours. You and I both know one thing to be true. No matter how much I love you, no matter how much I support you no matter how much money I give you, no matter how much resources I provide to you, no matter how many incredible doctors that are willing to assist you in whatever it is that you think that you might need to move forward. If you're not willing to do it, nothing can get done. I am powerless, completely powerless over what you are willing to do. And I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. If you don't want to do any work, don't. But if you do, and you're interested, and you're concerned, and you don't know how to do it, and that terrifies you, welcome. Because that's what this podcast is about. It's going to help you understand that it's totally fucking 100% normal. Although every word that's coming out of my mouth, I know that you think it's full of shit, but I'm not. Why? Because I did it. Because I felt the same exact way. And why did I do it? Why did I make the decision to move forward into that abyss, right? And trust that someone was leading me down the right path? Why? Because I was in enough fucking pain to do it. And it's not until you're in enough pain that you're going to be willing to do anything. And according to the study, and even this fifth headline, a lot of men seem like they're at their wits' end here, right? Suicide rates have skyrocketed. Why? Because men don't know where to go to handle and deal with this information. And they're not willing to ask for help, and they're not willing to do any work, because both leaves them in a state of no man's land. No man's land. No man's land is the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. No man's land will leave you paralyzed in an infinity loop of pure insanity. And if you can identify with that and can identify with just not being able to find a solution and stuck and just hate yourself, then you've come to the right spot. I'm not here to say I can solve all your problems, because the problems that need to be solved can only be solved by you. I can help you facilitate them. I can work together with you to walk you through that process. And I want to do that. And I'm willing to do that. But only if you are willing to do what's necessary to make that happen. And a majority of men aren't willing to do that. They're not willing to do that because they're fucking terrified of the results, and they're fucking terrified to be told that they're pussies for reaching out for help. But if you can identify with the no man's land and this infinity loop of insanity, where we keep doing the same thing over and over again, and we keep ending up in the same exact spot, then maybe you might be ready. Okay? All right, so let's get into headline number 5, which is a pretty interesting one. The headline number 5 goes like this. Frustrated by economic anxieties. We know what economic anxieties are, right? It's the foundation that men have got accustomed to that will give them confidence that their job will be there for a long period of time is no longer there. They're worried they could lose their job tomorrow. They're worried that they could get downgraded and make less money tomorrow. They're in an economic, anxiety-ridden place where they can't find comfort in what they're doing because the economy around them is changing so rapidly that their skill sets might just be thrown out the window tomorrow. Okay? This is probably the only heading that I've found that includes men and women. And it says, men and women support leaders who would tear it all down. All right? Frustrated by economic anxieties, men and women support leaders who would tear it all down. Okay? And I think we know what tear it all down means, which is do something other than what we're doing now in a political world, right? Like democracy, yes, it's important, and yes, it's It's necessary, but everyone's lying to everybody. You know, our senators are compromised, and I'm not going to get on a rant about conspiracy theories or anything like that because it's just a waste of time and gets us nowhere. But we've lost trust in our political leaders because we've gotten so accustomed to them lying to us all the time that we don't believe that they'll do anything. And our expectation is not to trust them and to expect to be disappointed. And that has happened for a lot of people on both sides of the party. We're all guilty of it, okay? We're all guilty of it. Why? Because we live in a polarized world where this group is right and this group is right, and they will kill each other to confirm who's right and not work out a compromise. Just my opinion. All right, so let's get into some of this data. All right, so we know the headline. It's titled "Tear It All Down." Economic anxieties mean more support for these beliefs. Men who face economic anxiety are more than twice as likely to support strongman political views. All right, so what percentage of men and women agreed with the following statements? Most elected officials don't care about what people like me think. Beep. Let's start over again. Here we go. The percentage of men and women who agree with the following statements. Most elected officials don't care about what people like me think. 56% of the men in the study agreed with that statement, and 72% of women agreed with that statement. Here's another one. The economy works best when the government stays out of the way and lets people get ahead. 67% of men agree with that statement. 57% of women agree with that statement. I feel safer under Trump. 52% of men said that they agree with that statement. 42% of women said they agreed with that statement. The U.S. would be a better place with a strong leader in charge who doesn't bother with elections. 57% of men agree with that statement. 51% of women agree with that statement. I support Trump's effort to dismantle DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. 55% of men agree with that statement. 40% of women agree with that statement. A president that tears it all down is the only way forward. 45% of men agree with that statement. 67% of women agree with that statement. And the last but not least, I don't think voting matters. 39% of men agree with that statement, and 34% of women agree with that statement. That's some pretty dire, data. I feel safer under Trump. I support Trump's effort in dismantling DEI. The more that men and women endorse the manosphere beliefs, the more they want to tear it down. Remember, the manosphere is where men go online to find forums and groups of like-minded people that they can identify with in any way, shape, or form, whether it be positive or whether it be negative. Most of the time, it's negative, to support their staunch beliefs, okay? It says men who endorse manosphere beliefs that they are exposed to online are 3 times as likely to endorse strongman politics. What's that saying? It's saying that men who follow the manosphere and belong to these different groups, these different radical groups, both on the right and both on the left, right? They are 3 times more likely to want to have strongman politics. And this is even more compelling, okay? The same dynamic is women who endorse the manosphere beliefs that they are exposed to online are 3.7 times as likely to endorse strongman politics. They endorse it more than the men do by 0.7%. Can you identify with this? And if so, does it resonate with you? Can you identify with this? Do you understand the challenge that we're facing if you can identify with it? Do you think that there's a somewhere in between area that we could look at that might work out, that could help the cause, right? If you don't, then I don't know what you're doing here. I don't know why you're here, because I'm not going to endorse or promote an ideology that just I don't believe in. And that's not going to be a part of my podcast. I am looking for, here's a good example. If 100% means that you're going to go all in on looking for ways to help yourself identify emotional pain, I'm only asking that you generate and provide at least 1%. I'd even take 0.5%. That's where I'm at. Because that means in some way, shape, or form, you're willing to hear something that's hopeful, that you can control. You alone that can control. Not anyone else. And not following anyone else's beliefs, that you can control. To take ownership and responsibility for what you really want. And what I think people really want is peace of mind. A little serenity, And right now we're not living in a world that has a lot of that. Many dads are deeply worried about their children's financial futures. Okay, here's a quote from a white progressive voting dad. What do we as caregivers and parents do about the situation with our children and young adult children who are coming of age and trying to start their lives when it seems to be like the deck is stacked against them? I think right now the annual tuition to go to Davidson College, which is here in Charlotte, North Carolina, I can't say for sure, but I want to say I heard someone who applied there say that it was around $90,000. I'm a Gen X kid. That's me. I think my generation was the last group that actually bought into the idea of you go to college, get a good job, and everything will be okay. I've been out of graduate school for over 20 years. I'm still paying back my loans. My kids, their peers, are $50,000, $75,000, or $175,000 in debt and are working at Starbucks. There's this sense of I'll never be able to afford to buy a house. I can't afford to get married, and I can't afford to have kids. It's hard to be on the other side when you feel so ripped off and so angry. Holy shit. Can you identify with that statement? I can certainly identify with that. It's exactly where I'm at. It's exactly where I'm at. I have no retirement. I have no savings. I'm at a dead end job, and I don't know what else to do other than this. And try to let other men know that if you're terrified of whatever demons you have in the closet, don't be. Please, I beg you, don't be. Those are the things that when you bear light to them, vanish as quickly as they show up. And yes, it's not easy. I'm not saying it's fucking easy. I'm not saying at all it isn't easy. This is where it's going to require you to do the most work you've probably ever done on yourself. Not at a job, but on yourself. And my experience has been that that's all they are. It's just boogeymen in the closet. And when I open it up and I look in there and I'm able to share with somebody what they are, I feel better and I don't feel so toxic anymore. I feel like I just threw up after having a stomach bug for 5 hours. Have you ever had that feeling before? That's what it feels like. That's the only analogy that I can give you. Just like purging and getting it all out. Sorry, I'm ranting. All right. For parents and caregivers across voting groups, political distrust is pervasive. Here are some more quotes. I have a hard time trusting anything coming from the left or the right. And then I know anything coming from the government is going to be deeply flawed. White conservative voting dad. My main job as a parent is to provide or create the environment within which learning and growth and maturing will happen, right? The government's role to its society is to provide the environment within which we are also all learning and growing, is it not? And so chaos there creates chaos down here. All the anxiety and stress that can be created by all the turmoil isn't healthy for us. And if we're not healthy, then our families are going to be experiencing that as well. Couldn't have said it better myself. You know, sometimes as a dad, there's only so much you can do before you are wiped out. It's fearful when the cops pull you over. You're wondering if you're going to be able to go home that night or not. And you're feeling this from the police, other government folks, ICE, and all of the above. And that's from a Hispanic dad whose voting is unknown. Okay? So again, I sit back and I ask myself this one simple question. Does any of this resonate with you? And if it does, can someone please leave a fucking comment somewhere saying, yes, Rennick? Can somebody do that for me? Because I believe in some way, shape, or form that most men just want this to go away. And you know what? It's not. And how do I know it's not? Because suicide rates are going up. The economy is not where it needs to be, right? Men are struggling not only out in society, but personally on their own. Because a lot of the things that they think values them as a good man in society aren't there anymore. And so they go back home feeling like a failure and then having to deal with all those dynamics that happen in a marriage and whatnot. I mean, we're getting infiltrated by more than the front, right? We're getting infiltrated from all sides. Front, flank, right flank, and from behind are 6. And I want nothing more than to be able to help you define at least one of those directions so that you can have a foundation for saying to yourself, I want more of that. And the program or the process that I've created is repeatable, which means that if you take the time to go through the process with me, once you understand the process and go through it once, you can do it again and again and again and apply it to many, many, many things. All right. And my process focuses exclusively on the traditional male value system, and more importantly, the one trait of the traditional male value system that I believe hurts us the most, which is emotional stoicism. My program is based on those 2 things. Traditional male value system and emotional stoicism. It is a lie and only thrusts you into no man's land in the infinity loop of insanity. So, all right, I will continue throwing these out for you guys. I appreciate you more than you know for listening. Please consider joining our private Discord channel. Please consider liking and subscribing to the YouTube channel. Please consider sharing it with your friends. You know, I was kidding around saying not to share it, but the reality is that this is probably not a good time to be funny, you know, and this is a serious matter that we are willing or unwilling to look at. The outcome, we risk losing an entire generation of men to depression, anxiety, and despair, is upon us. It is here at your doorstep. And we won't ask for help, and we won't talk about the stuff that's hurting us. That is living in the no man's land, infinity loop of insanity. And you don't need to be there. And I can help you try my best to get you out of there. But the success of my program is entirely contingent on your willingness to change. If you can't convince me that you're in enough emotional pain that you're willing to change, I won't take you on as a client. I just won't. I won't take your money. It would be unethical, and it would be a waste of your time. As I've said before, and I haven't said it enough, and I'm going to be saying it a lot more, we all know and probably have experienced once in our life that there is one thing that I cannot do for anyone. No matter how much I love them, no matter how much I support them, no matter how many resources I provide to them, no matter all the effort that I'm capable to do, if that person isn't willing to change, they won't. They won't. So unless you're at least 0.5% willing to change, then there's a shot that this program can work for you. If you're 50%, great. If you're 100%, then let's get fucking busy. That's it. That's all I got for you guys. Do me a favor. Do yourself a favor. Share this with someone. Like the shit on YouTube or wherever else. Leave a comment. And remember, I'll see you in there.